It is game day. The Baltimore Ravens face off against the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football. We talk about how both teams match up with each other and why the Ravens are poised to make a big bounce back statement. All that and more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Allstriker of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available for you, all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe over there as well. We're bringing you 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. We go live after every Ravens game, which we will be doing tonight, and also after every piece of Ravens big news. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Happy game day. It was a stress-free Sunday yesterday, and we could all enjoy some football, but now the games begin. The John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh facing off. We'll dive into everything today, how the Ravens offense matches up with that Chargers defense. We'll flip the field, talk Ravens defense versus Chargers offense. Then we'll get into some final predictions, both realistic and bold. So hope everybody had a great weekend. I certainly had a weekend. Obviously, I signed off of our bonus show on Saturday saying, hey, we'll be back on Sunday with another one. And then I came down with a 103.1 fever and was just going through it. I tried, but I couldn't record at night. So I just decided, hey, let's rest up. Let's put a better product out in the morning. And we ended up actually getting to react to some news that dropped on Sunday morning. Daniel Jones apparently being considered by the Ravens, according to multiple people, Adam Schefter, Jordan Schultz. And also we talked about that Eddie Jackson debacle and how that chapter is now closed. So if you haven't checked out the bonus episode, be sure to go back and do that. It was our second ever bonus episode, afternoon style, on Locked On Ravens. So I'm glad I did it that way for the bonus episode. Obviously, we're Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Houston time, ride or die there. But bonus episodes are usually 6, but when there are hiccups, which usually there are not many of course, you're on Locked On Ravens. We're consistent here on Locked On Ravens, but sometimes 103.1 fever will get in your way. So it happened, and we put out a good product in the afternoon. So I'm excited about that. So be sure to check that out. But let's talk about game day here right now for this Ravens team, starting off with the Ravens offense versus the Chargers defense. And we know that when we're talking about this offense, it has been a historic group all season. They've put up awesome numbers, but they put together their worst showing of the year last week against the Pittsburgh defense that just seemingly has their number over and over and over again. And I think that to a lot of people is frustrating when, you're talking about an offense that you're like, okay, well, this is finally the year, right? Finally the group that can, slay the dragon in the Steelers in that defense, and they don't do it. Well, against the Chargers, I do expect a bounce back effort, but the Chargers are a heck of a team when you talk about their scoring defense. They've given up the least amount of points this season, 145 points for that defense, which is incredible. That's frankly almost unheard of in a lot of different circumstances. They're the number one scoring defense in the NFL. They're a top 5 pass defense, but here's where it gets interesting. The run defense for Los Angeles is not good. Not good. They're a bottom run defense in the league, 24th, giving up 4.7 yards per carry. And that, to me, is where I think you have to exploit the Chargers first and foremost. John Harbaugh talked about it a lot after the game against Pittsburgh. I've talked about it a lot all year. Get yourself into second and plus situations. How do you do that? You pick up 5 yards on first down. You pick up 7 yards on first down. Get yourself into 2nd and 3s. 2nd and 5s, 2nd and 2s. Don't put yourself in a 2nd and 10. Don't get a penalty and put yourself in a 1st and 15 or 1st and 20. Baltimore had so many drives stall out against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And honestly, we can go back and look at a lot of different games this season based off their penalty numbers this year in general, which are terrible. They've had so many drives stall out because they have a great play, but it's called back due to penalty. And it just kills all the momentum that you have. So when you have a Chargers run defense that has struggled and they're not going to have Denzel Perryman. Denzel Perryman's a big loss for that Chargers unit in the middle. You have to exploit that early. Look, I think that when you talk about what this team has to offer in the Ravens, you have a 3-headed monster. You have to use it. Obviously, Derrick Henry being your main guy, right? But then you have Justice Hill, who's been great for you all year. And then I want to see, we talked about this on the bonus episode, I want to see Keaton Mitchell. Let's get some Keaton Mitchell action going here in Baltimore. I know he's still coming back from the injury, still trying to work his way through things and work his way back in and whatnot. But we've now had a couple of weeks of that. I think having Keaton get a couple carries could certainly be in the cards here, and I hope it will be absolutely electric. In fact, I know that if he does get the ball, it will be absolutely electric. So that, to me, is where you have to start with this Chargers defense, is exploit them in the run game, get them worried about that, make them bring guys up in the box, make them bite on those play fakes, because we've talked about play action, how you have to have play action work for you. Your run game has to be the start of that. You have to establish your run game. And then if teams are so terrified of that, they will either bring guys in the box or linebackers and safeties will bite on those fakes. And if they either bring guys in the box, well, that leaves one-on-one opportunities with your receivers. And Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, those guys can win one-on-one. You also have things where you can just plop a ball over a linebacker's head to Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, etc., if those linebackers bite on those fakes. So that, to me, is where it all starts. Starts in the run game. Run game is the key for this team. You look at some of the guys the Ravens have to stop on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, there are a lot of them, if we're being honest. I mean, the Chargers have a lot of players on that defense that do a really good job. Now, they're not necessarily a high interception team. Elijah Molden leads them with 3, but there are some guys that you have to pay attention to, especially on that defensive front. Tuli Tuipulotu is someone who has been unreal for them this year. 7 sacks so far, and he's been on fire these last couple of weeks. Bud Dupree has 5 sacks for them. Khalil Mack has 4.5. He's expected to play. Morgan Fox on the interior, he has 3 sacks. And now you look at guys like Joey Bosa, who's only played in 7 games this season, but still has 3 sacks. It's not just their stars that are producing, right? When you look at the stars on that line, it's Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, right? Those are the guys. But they have other guys stepping up and playing huge roles for them. So this is a big test game, particularly when it comes to protecting Lamar Jackson. Now, what I always say about Lamar Jackson is that it's essentially a 2-step process to be able to, maybe even 3 or 4, if we're being honest. But first of all, you got to beat the offensive lineman. Then if you beat the offensive lineman, you have to find a way to bring down Lamar Jackson. And that is one of the hardest things to do in football, if not the hardest thing to do in football. And honestly, what might be right alongside that is bringing down Derrick Henry. Those 2 things are 2 of the hardest things to do in the National Football League, and the Ravens have them on the same team. Now, another guy I got to locate is Derwin James. We know Derwin James is the Chargers' Swiss Army knife. Obviously, they like to bring him up in the box, like to use him all over the field. He's essentially their Kyle Hamilton, but Kyle Hamilton obviously is better. Definitely, if Hayden Hurst was playing in this game, which he's not, he got ruled out with a hip injury, it'd be kind of what could have been for this Ravens team. And I think it all worked out at the end of the day. But obviously a lot of people, including myself, saw Derwin James fall in that draft, and Baltimore traded out of that spot. And then obviously the Chargers nabbed him with their pick there before the Ravens got back on the clock again, and Baltimore took Hayden Hurst. Now, with the 32nd overall pick, we know the rest is history with that. They trade back into the first round, they get Lamar Jackson, and then a couple years later, they get Kyle Hamilton. So again, essentially all worked out. But Derwin James was on a lot of people's wish lists for the Ravens in that draft, and it did not end up happening. So he's a guy you also got to look out for. But I'm confident in this Ravens group against this Chargers group defensively. Now, I think in the past game, you got to look out for guys like Asante Samuel Jr., right? He's a guy that has obviously been playing good football for the most part, and he's someone who I think you have to look at. But you also have other players out there that can make an impact. Louis Gilman is their other safety who does a lot of good things for them as well. And I mentioned Molden, who plays out of the slot for them, who does a really, really good job. And Kristen Fulton, who they brought over from Tennessee, he's one of their other outside corners, former LSU guy. So again, not names that you're going to be like, oh, that's like a star in the league, right? Those aren't names that are like a Jalen Ramsey, Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander, Pat Surtain, etc. But they're still decently good football players, and they all play as a group, all play as a unit. But I have confidence in this Ravens group bouncing back because we've seen the explosive nature of this unit, and we know Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, they love the primetime lights. They love going out there and putting on a show in primetime. They love going out to LA, putting on shows in primetime. So I'm thinking with all that, I think Lamar's going to bounce back, and we'll talk about predictions in the final part of the show as well, because I have a couple of bold ones for this Ravens offense. We'll come up with the second part of the show. We'll talk about the Baltimore defense going up against the Chargers offense and how Baltimore defense can keep momentum after a big, strong showing against the Steelers. Stay tuned and let's get to it on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is the most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, and so much more. And if you want a course on the Great American Story, Hillsdale has that for you as well. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. And this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 100 times your cash or in your game all season long on Prize Picks. And I love going on Prize Picks, seeing everything they have to offer over there. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is also the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds to determine sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. So this week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Thanksgiving free square. You got Tyreek Hill, only needs to receive 0.5 of a receiving yard for the projection to hit. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We're back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this game day edition of the show. Appreciate everybody being here again, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're going to be live here after the game tonight, breaking down everything. Win, lose, hopefully not a tie. We don't like ties over here on Locked On Ravens, but even if it is a tie, we'll be here breaking down everything you need to know about the game and what happened. Hopefully the Ravens can pull out a big win, and if they do, I think a big part of that will be their defense and having another great performance like we saw against that Pittsburgh offense. Now, we can get one thing clear off the bat. This Chargers offense is a lot better than that Pittsburgh offense that we saw. Said this on the bonus show we did yesterday, but just that Pittsburgh offense, they're such frauds to me. I can't get over it. Chargers offense is a lot better. Justin Herbert is playing great football, and this Chargers offense is pretty good. They're a pretty good offense. Not the best. The Ravens are the best, but the Chargers offense is decent. They're 11th in passing offense, but the surprising thing is obviously for those of us that know Greg Roman, and I think we all know Greg Roman pretty well here, the run offense hasn't really been that good this season. J.K. Dobbins individually has had a great season, but they're only 20th in yards per attempt at 4.2. And their offensive line, they have bookend tackles and Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Those guys are beasts. Interior has a bit more question marks, including Bradley Bozeman, former Raven, who has been very up and down for the team this season. So I would expect that the Ravens, and hopefully they will have Travis Jones. We don't know yet. He's listed questionable with that ankle injury. He returned to practice on Saturday, as did Tyler Linderbaum on the offensive side of the ball. But I would expect Naomi Madubuike to maybe have a big game here. Could the Ravens get some more interior pressure? You know, is Brent Urban a guy that's possibly at play here? It'll be interesting because Travis Jones is one of their best pass rushers on this team, interior or exterior, right? Either one. But here we are, you know, talking about this team, and it's like, well, getting consistent pressure, seeing what we saw against Pittsburgh, and Afe Owe going out there and having 3 sacks. You know, Broderick Washington, he's another guy that could maybe get some pressure. I think he's going to start with getting some pressure on Justin Herbert and making that internal clock speed up. That, to me, is where it starts. But you also do have to shut down this Los Angeles run game. Obviously, a couple of familiar faces over there with J.K. and Gus Edwards. Gus has had a tough year. He's been injured for a decent amount of the season and, you know, hasn't really done a lot with his opportunities when he actually has been on the field. But J.K., on the other hand, has been absolutely incredible. Gus Edwards has averaged 3.6 yards per carry on the ground. J.K., 4.8. He has 8 touchdowns on the season. It's been such a cool reclamation story for him. And I think, look, anybody who understood why he was leaving Baltimore got it. And I think that a lot of people understood that if he were to be healthy, he was going to have a lot of success wherever he went. And so reunited with Greg Roman, and the rest is history. And I think it was a little shocking he did after some of the comments he had, especially after that Cincinnati playoff loss a couple of years ago. But hey, JK's doing his thing. I think when you look at it, shutting him down is going to be really important as well. Now, receiver-wise, it's interesting because Ladd McConkey has been their best receiver this season. They've also had a Quentin Johnston revitalization. I know a lot of Chargers fans wanted Zay Flowers. The Ravens took him. And, first, obviously, the Chargers took Quentin Johnston, right? But I think that a lot of people wanted Zay Flowers over in Los Angeles, and the Chargers just didn't make it happen. And Zay had the great rookie season. Quentin Johnston struggled a lot. But Johnston's been really good for them this season for the most part. And it's been cool to see him kind of have that revival in the Chargers offense where they traded away Keenan Allen. They got rid of Mike Williams. And they said, hey, we're going to roll with these young guys. Josh Palmer also is in that equation. Johnston has 354 receiving yards. Josh Palmer 365. But it really has been the McConkey show. And also Will Dissly, who's been their big tight end option. 43 catches for Ladd McConkey leads the team, followed by 37 by Will Dissly. The Ravens have had some trouble covering tight ends at times this season. We certainly know that. And Dissly could be a guy that ends up having a big game, especially if Roquan isn't able to play in this one and they have to do a bunch of linebacker by committee stuff. That's a little concerning, I would say. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this defense is going to have to shut down Justin Herbert, who is having an incredible season. He ends up having a 63.5 completion percentage, 2,186 yards, 13 touchdowns, just one interception on the year. So you have Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert, two very low mistake players. And this game honestly could just come down to which team makes more mistakes. I know a lot of Ravens fans, myself included in this conversation, are kind of worried saying that because what has this Ravens team done practically all season? Make mistakes. Can't get out of their own way. Penalties. Missed execution, right? Decisions. It's been that type of year for the Ravens, and they're 7-4 still, right? But it's tough because a mistake can beat you in 1,000 different ways. And when you make as many mistakes as the Ravens have in some of these games, yeah, it's not surprising they have 4 losses this season. It wouldn't shock me if they had less, wouldn't shock me if they had more based off of all the games that they've played. So Chargers are a really good football team all the way around. And I think it's going to be a battle between two really good football teams. But when you talk about the actual implications of this game, I mean, look, we just saw Houston lose to Tennessee on Sunday. Houston lost to Tennessee. If the Ravens don't win the North, they need to get that 5 seed because Houston is all but locked into that 4 seed. Pretty much, right? They're going to win the South just based off default. That's not a good football team right now. CJ Stroud has regressed in year 2. The offensive line is terrible. That's a team that's probably a one and done in the playoffs. And this game between Los Angeles and Baltimore, if the Ravens don't win the North against what the Steelers have to offer there, and I still think the Ravens have a shot to win it, no doubt. But if you don't, well, I'd much rather go to Houston as opposed to go to Pittsburgh or Kansas City or Buffalo in round 1, right? I think Houston is pretty much a book it win for the Ravens and honestly any other team that plays them in the playoffs round 1. But the other path, not as easy. But the Ravens don't shy away from anything, and we definitely know that. Coming up in the final part of the show, though, we'll be talking about some final predictions for the game in general, and we'll get to a couple of bold ones as well. Stay tuned. Lots to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, your live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And the show is brought to you by DK Law Group. When you need a law firm, do you want the legal runaround, or would you rather have a no-nonsense approach? You get the latter with DK Law Group. DK Law Group is a Maryland-based law firm who is redefining the legal process with their modern approach. DK Law Group specializes in real estate law, estate planning, business law, and family law. They're tech-savvy. They treat clients like family, and they focus on keeping your legal solutions simple. DK Law Group is a woman-led firm with Deanna Conlon at the helm. Deanna has been called an unparalleled legal expert by some. One of the things I'll quickly notice with DK Law Group is their transparent pricing. They believe in clarity and cost and no one left in limbo. DK Law Group knows that speed is key. By leveraging technology, DK Law Group streamlines the process to serve you better and faster. Contact DK Law Group today at dklawmd.com. Locked On listeners can call today to schedule a free 30-minute consultation when you mention the tagline, Empowering Legacies. We're back. Locked On Ravens, game day edition episode. Kevin Oestreicher still rocking out with you here. Ravens face off against the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Crazy, we're already in week 12, about to be in week 13. Seems like the season just started yesterday. Isaiah Likely just had his toe on the out-of-bounds line. Feels like yesterday, but here we are essentially 3 months into the season already, and it's crazy. Regular season is coming to a very quick end, and then it'll be what everybody's waiting for, playoff time. And obviously there's still a lot to go in terms of just determining who was where in those seedings. But this is one of those games that matters. AFC conference game where you could potentially be fighting with this team for seeding if you don't win your division. All the implications start to come out each and every single week that the season goes on. And then honestly, you start to look back on some of your losses that you've taken. And for Baltimore, how good Lamar Jackson's been against the NFC, it's all AFC conference losses. And some of them might sting if the Ravens don't get the job done in some of these games. But they have an opportunity to bounce back in this one, and that's what I expect will happen. I think that for the Ravens, this is a game that they know they have to have, and for the Chargers, they have to have it too, right? But I think the difference between the Chargers and the Ravens is that the Ravens have a shot at their division still, and the Chargers essentially don't. You know, the Chiefs haven't been great this season, but they find ways to win games late. And it's obviously put the Chargers a bit behind the 8 ball there. Not saying the Chargers can't win it whatsoever. I mean, the Chiefs could very well collapse, and the Chargers could go on here and go on a run. I'm not saying that's out of the realm of possibility. But I just think for the Ravens, they need this game more than the Chargers need this game. You know, if they were to squander what the Browns did on Thursday night and beat Pittsburgh, give Baltimore an opportunity to climb even further back into that fight for the division, that's huge. But if the Ravens can't take advantage of that opportunity, that's a big blow to what they want to do. And plus, if you lose this game, you're probably, if you don't win the division, locked into the 6th seed, unless, again, you can overtake the Chargers in just record in general, but that will require you not having the tiebreaker over Los Angeles with the head-to-head. So this is a huge game for the Ravens. And I think they're going to come out with intensity and play as such. Again, we know John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson love the bright lights. They love it at home, but even when they go away, it is a sight to behold just how dominant that this team can be. So, look, this Ravens team is mad. They want to go out there and make a statement again. They want to prove to the NFL world under the bright lights that the team that went on that field last week against Pittsburgh is not the team that they are. But you have to go out there and you have to prove it. You have to go out there and you have to prove it. So I expect heavy doses of Derrick Henry in this game. I expect heavy doses of Zay Flowers in this game. I expect Rashad Bateman to have some big catches in this one as well. I'm expecting a big Isaiah Likely game. That's my bold prediction. Big Isaiah Likely game in this one on Monday night. I think with Denzel Perryman out, you know, obviously Chargers are going to have a void in the middle of that defense. While that hurts him in the run game, I think that for Likely, he can break free on a lot of these plays. We also know that Mark Andrews has had success against the Chargers in the past and wouldn't be shocked if that was another option the Ravens go to. But this offense is not the offense that we saw against the Steelers. There's always some weird stuff happening with the Steelers. You got to throw everything out the window when you talk about the Steelers, all right? That is like its own bubble, its own world, all right? When we get back to reality, and I know the reality against the Steelers is the Steelers just own them right now, but the vast majority of reality, it is that this Ravens offense has been a historic group this season. And one game against Pittsburgh is not going to change my mind about that. Now, defensively, you got to show that this Pittsburgh game was not an anomaly and more of a trend. That, to me, is going to be the biggest storyline for me entering the game in general, right? What defense did we see against Pittsburgh last week? Where did that come from? And how is that going to translate over to tonight? Because if we see the same effort, the same intensity, the same production, the Ravens might be back. But if that was just a one-game thing and all of a sudden they start giving up big completions again, middle of the field stuff and reverting, well, the Ravens are probably in trouble again. So that's a huge storyline in my opinion, but I'm going to say the Ravens win this one. I'm going to go final score of 27-21. That's what I'm going to go here. I think the Ravens defense, it's not going to be like you give up 18 points to Pittsburgh, although that was all weird in terms of how that happened. But Chargers are a good offense. But I do think that, look, it's kind of a we know you, you know us situation with all the former Ravens in LA, players, coaches, executives, etc. And then obviously those guys they know a thing or two about the Ravens. So I think it's going to be a close game, semi-high scoring. I'm not going too high, not going too low on the final score for this one. Over on FanDuel, I'm not necessarily – I don't really know what I go with over or under, honestly. I think it could really go either way. But the Ravens have to be able to start fast and then keep that momentum going, because it just seems like far too often this offense will stall out for quarters at a time. Whereas like they can go on a heater and like they can snap back into it whenever they want, but feels like for like 2 straight quarters or 2.5 quarters, they're just going 3 and out, or they're getting down to the opponent 45-yard line, then having to punt away or go for it on 4th or something like that. You can't be stalling out in these games. Where, look, the defense did more than enough for you last week to go win the game. They only allowed Pittsburgh 6 field goals, no touchdowns. That should be more than enough with this offense to make you go out there and win a game. But the Ravens couldn't get the job done. And so I think it's going to be a bounce back, revenge. There's no necessarily revenge to be taken on Jim Harbaugh here. I mean, John's 2-0. If anything, it'd be a Jim Harbaugh revenge game if that's how they want. But look, these guys are going to want to go out there, the former Ravens, and take it to their former team. Right? They're going to go out there and want to win for Jim Harbaugh against his brother. And I'm sure it's going to be the other way for John as well. But that's all stuff. You gotta be on it from the jump, on it from the snap. Can't have sloppiness, can't have mistakes, can't have bad decisions. Those all come within a game. I'm not saying the Ravens have to be perfect, but you just can't have it all stack on top of each other, because that is how you lose games like you did to Pittsburgh last week. So it's all in the cards here for the Ravens to bounce back. They just have to go out and execute it overall. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on the way out in video form and on the way out in audio form. Be sure to hit that follow along and subscribe button as well. We'll be back here, as I mentioned, later tonight after the game, 15 minutes after, probably talking about whatever happened in that game, win, lose, what happens in the Ravens and the Chargers. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and we'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.